Hi, my name is Melinda Taylor, and I am going to speak about the book Dear Tolstoy, Yours Gandhi by Jonathan Kislev. I loved this book. It was a piece of historical fiction, and it was very well written, very interesting, and genuine. Jonathan did his research. There were letters and pictures, dates and times and places in the book, so that you knew that you were reading about something that did happen in history. But I also like the fact that it's fiction, which makes it more interesting for us to read, because just reading about history in and of itself, as important as it is to know, so that we can learn from people's mistakes and try not to make them, as people tend to do, fiction allows it to be a story which people like and which makes it more interesting and more enjoyable to read. So one reason that I love the book is because it was well written. But I also love the book because of the way that Jonathan was able to go back and forth in time between the late 1800s and the early 1900s and go through Gandhi's story, Tolstoy's story, to go back and forth between the two. And not only do you get to know each of them, but you get to know their families, their relationships with their families, and you get to know some of their friends and their relationships with them. And you get to know what was going on at the time and how they dealt with those things. And as a psychology major, I enjoyed that. I enjoyed getting into their heads and, trying to understand them and what made them tick, what made them do and say and behave the way that they did. And this was a time early in Gandhi's life, or at least earlier, when he was in his 40s and he was a lawyer and he was in South Africa. And there was injustice happening with the Indian and Chinese immigrants who were being treated differently than their Caucasian counterparts. And Gandhi, with the help of his wife, Gandhi had a wonderful relationship with his family. He also had children. His wife encouraged him to write to Tolstoy to help him get more advice about what to do about this injustice, because he was struggling to figure out how to deal with it. And he believed in nonviolence and allowing love to lead the way, even when the natural inclination may be to be violent, because that's just the way that the world is. And unfortunately, it was that way then and has been that way for forever, really, a long time. And Tolstoy was a staunch believer in love and in getting that love and understanding that love through different religions. And he also was a believer in nonviolence, and he was popular for some of his writings, especially things he wrote early on, the fiction that he wrote. But later on, he wrote some books that had to do with his very strong love and nonviolence beliefs. And those books he was not as popular for, at least in terms of the church. He was excommunicated from the church because of those beliefs. But those same books and some of those letters that he wrote based on those beliefs, and the letters that he and Gandhi exchanged after Gandhi first wrote to him, were all things that ultimately helped Gandhi to truly pursue and lead the love and nonviolence movement that took probably longer than the violence movement would have taken, but ultimately allowed them to get the justice, the Asian and Indian immigrants to get the justice they deserved, even though it may have taken more time, without having a war and people killed and all of that fatality and tragedy. And Gandhi was also later in history, after the book was written, able to do these same things for India. and was able to see the English rule leave India. So all the struggles that Gandhi went through in the book, in the long run, end up being successful. And Gandhi has a chance to meet Tolstoy's oldest daughter, Tatiana. And Tatiana was able to tell Gandhi about a different side of Tolstoy, where he had a difficult time showing love to his family and his loved ones the same way that he could show love to others and the same way that he could write about love. And that was an eye-opener for Gandhi. But Gandhi also helped to open Tatiana's eyes to realize that Tolstoy did have a difficult childhood, losing his parents and a grandparent young. And so he may have had issues with letting people in and being close to him because he's afraid of losing them and getting hurt. So he loved his family. He just had a hard time showing it. And it was easier for him to be more of the strict disciplinarian and to be more critical than to show the love. And that was an eye-opener for Tatiana, even after Tolstoy's death, to be able to forgive him for that and to be able to realize that he did love her and, tried to show it in the best way that he could. And that relationship between Tolstoy and Gandhi, that mentorship, that friendship, it did so much. It literally changed a piece of history with allowing this nonviolence movement to be successful in 2 different countries, in South Africa and ultimately in India too. And that is one of the things I love about the book, that, it's so inspiring to know that even these great people, these well-known, famous people in history, they were human. They had their imperfections. They had fears. They struggled. They made mistakes. They had to go through trial and error. But they also were strong and brave, and they believed and had faith in beautiful principles and ideals and values, and they were able to make a difference. They were able to change a part of the world and to do it in a way that was good and positive, even though Gandhi and others had to go to jail and their families had to be taken care of by others and struggling, without that primary caregiver, working and providing food. They started Tolstoy Farm. There were several other farms like it where they lived according to Gandhi's, according to Tolstoy's principles that Gandhi also believed in, where they would make their own food and their own clothing and would be very self-sufficient and would have less possessions rather than more. Tolstoy came from a wealthy family, but he ultimately didn't really care for too much wealth and preferred to live as a poorer person. So it's just very interesting, as a psych major, just getting into their heads and getting to understand them and really getting to know them. And I love the way that Jonathan went back and forth in history between Tolstoy and Gandhi and Tatiana, and even with Tatiana's family and all of this. So I really loved the book, and I believe that you would too. Thank you.